By the time the 12th rider came through the cottonwoods, Ada Mercer had already chosen which one she would shoot first. Her father's rifle rested along her forearm, warm from her grip, smelling of walnut, lamp oil, and the last clean thing he had ever trusted to her. And below the roofline, the little sod house crouched in the moonlight with one lamp burning like an eye that refused to close. A gate clicked somewhere in the dark. A horse snorted near the wash. The men were still far enough off to blur at the edges, but close enough for Ada to feel what they had brought with them. Confidence. Numbers. The old belief that a woman alone was half defeated before the first shot. Before we go further, settle in wherever the evening has found you. And if you like, tell us in the comments where you're listening from tonight. We always like to know who's keeping us company when the prairie goes quiet and the truth starts walking. Ada worked the bolt once, gentle as breath, and watched the riders spread wider. They were being careful. That meant someone had told them something true about her. It also meant they had chosen not to believe it. That had happened to Ada Mercer for most of her life. Men passing through would find her on the north fence in a wind sharp enough to split knuckles, or in the corral with a half-broken gelding pressing its fear against her shoulder, or at the creek crossing reading wheel ruts and cloud color better than most men read print. They would nod at Amos Mercer and ask when he meant to hire proper help. Amos would say nothing. Later, when they were gone, he would hand Ada another hammer, another line, another rifle cartridge, as if the world's blindness was no business of theirs. He had taught her to shoot by tying scraps of red cloth to sage stems and making her wait for the wind to settle. The land tells you when to move, he used to say. Miss the land, and you miss most things. She had learned distance by fence posts, weather by smell, and patience by growing up where patience was the only crop that never failed entirely. He had been dead 3 days. Vernon Pike had started trying to buy the Mercer quarter the moment rumor of a rail spur moved across the county. Pike already owned the biggest spread within 30 miles, and like many men who have too much, he had begun mistaking appetite for right. He sent a contract first. Amos sent it back and signed. Then posts were cut. A milk cow was butchered in the night. Finally, Amos went to Barstow for lamp glass and came home 2 days late with blood dried in his hair and a shape on his ribs that looked less like a fall than a boot sole. He lived long enough to call Ada close on the second night. Flour bin, he whispered. False bottom. She bent until her ear almost touched his lips. What's there? Ledger. His hand found her wrist. Deeds. Water maps. Names. Pike's been cheating widows and moving lines. If the circuit judge sees it, he's finished. Then I'll write it in. No, the words scraped him raw. He's watching roads. Hold here till the hearing. Honest help comes, you put it in their hand. Not before. He died before dawn with the rain barrel ticking outside, and Ada's palms spread over the bones of his chest, feeling each breath leave wider space behind it. Tomorrow was hearing day. That morning Vernon Pike had ridden up, while Amos's grave still looked dark and broken in the fresh earth. He wore a black coat too good for work and gloves too smooth for honest weather. His horse stood quiet because expensive animals always do. A woman alone can't hold a claim out here, he said. Sign now, and I'll see you settled decent in town. Ada had looked at him a long moment. The breeze brought sweet tobacco off his coat. It was the same smell trapped in her father's shirt the day he crawled home hurt. My father planted this quarter after burying a son, she said. Roofed that barn with one hand half lame from frostbite. Stayed through grasshoppers, drought, and debt. And you've come to ask me for it like I ought to feel grateful. Pike smiled the way certain men smile when they believe the world has already agreed with them. I've come to offer arithmetic. Men with families nearby won't cross me. You've got no husband, no brothers, and no law that'll reach you in time. You should have sent a better liar. The smile left his face. By sundown, he said. After that, whatever happens out here belongs to your stubbornness. He rode off with the calm of a man who had practiced being feared until it felt like character. Ada spent the day making him earn it. She hid the mare and mule in the cut north of the wash. She filled buckets and dragged them to the roof hatch. She ran rope through lantern handles so she could raise and lower them from cover. She laid barbed wire in the grass where horses would want to cut close. She stuffed her father's old coat with hay and hung it in the loft where shadows could make a false defender. She moved her mother's Bible, Amos's watch, and a packet of family letters into the storm cellar because some things deserved a better grave than fire. Near noon, Caleb Rourke rode in. He dismounted before he spoke. Ada noticed that first. Men who respected sorrow did not tower over it. Caleb lived 6 miles west in a lined shack and had said little to anyone since fever took his wife and little girl the previous winter. He had a scar along his jaw, steady hands, and the quiet look of a man who had gone so long without asking for anything that asking had nearly left him. He held out a canvas sack. Cartridges. All I had that fit Amos's rifle. The brass clicked warm against her palm. If Pike sees you here, he'll come for your place next. Likely. That's supposed to comfort me? It's supposed to mean I knew the cost before I rode over. He helped without fuss. Ada showed him where to drag the old wagon axle for cover, where to string the cups that would sing if anyone cut behind the house, where the blind side of the roof gave her view of the pump. While they worked, dry grass whispered around their boots, and the sun baked the yard until the whole place smelled of dirt, sweat, and old lumber. At the barn door, he found her knotting line with quick, exact fingers. Your father taught you all this? No, Ada said. He let me stay long enough to learn. Caleb studied her a moment, then said quietly, the world's got a bad habit of calling a thing too much when it's only stronger than expected. She glanced up. It was the first thing anyone had said since Amos died that reached the exact sore place. By afternoon, the county had heard what was coming. Old Mrs. Bell sent bandages through her grandson. The storekeeper's wife left coffee and a knife on Ada's porch and pretended she had forgotten them. Reverend Sloane rode past without stopping, but at the bend in the road, he lifted 2 fingers from the reins, which was not courage yet, though it leaned that way. Sheriff Tully passed before sunset and never turned his head. Ada watched his badge flash and thought how strange it was that metal could shine so bright and stand for so little. In the barn loft, Caleb checked sight lines through the slats. You don't have enough rounds for a long fight. I don't need a long fight. I need scared men to believe there are more of us than there are. He looked at her, then toward the house. Let me stay. The easy path opened right there. Another pair of hands. Another rifle. Another heartbeat between her and the dark. Ada went to the flour bin, lifted the false bottom, and drew out the ledger her father had died protecting. She placed it in Caleb's hands. Tomorrow Judge Holloway hears the land complaints in Barstow, she said. Pike will watch the roads for anybody carrying this. You know the Dry Creek and Miller's Wash. You ride after sundown, keep low, and put this book in the judge's hand. Caleb's fingers tightened around the leather. You're asking me to leave you alone. I'm asking you to choose what matters over what feels merciful. He said nothing for a moment. Dust floated between them in the slant light. Outside, the day had started its slow turn toward evening. Then he asked, Tell me true, Ada Mercer. Are you brave, or do you just hate giving cruel men the satisfaction they came for? Her mouth almost lifted. Ain't much daylight between the two. He looked down at the ledger, then back at her. For what it's worth, I think fear is just courage before it's had time to stand up straight. If you were in her place, with night closing in and every road feeling dangerous, would you have trusted a grieving man to ride away with the only proof that could bury the devil coming for your door? Or would you have kept the ledger close and gambled everything on your own hands? Tell me what you think, because some choices look like abandonment until the whole truth comes round. Ada tied the ledger under Caleb's coat. If you're not back by dawn, don't wait to feel guilty. Just make sure Pike hangs. His gaze held hers. I'll come back if I can. Come back if it helps. That seemed to matter to him more than she intended. He mounted at the rise and turned once. Ada lifted the rifle. Then he was gone into the reddening light, and loneliness widened over the Mercer place like shadow over water. The riders came just after moonrise. 12 of them, spread in a loose crescent, boots low in their stirrups, coats dark, no lanterns. Men who planned wrong rarely wanted their faces remembered. Ada let them come close enough to hear leather creak and horses blowing through their nostrils. Then she fired into the dirt in front of the lead mount. The horse screamed and reared. Riders hauled back hard. Somebody shouted, More than one gun. Good. Ada yanked a rope. The loft lantern rose and threw her father's stuffed coat against the boards like a moving man. 2 shots cracked toward it. While they fired at the ghost, she slid along the roofline and dropped her next round through a rider's shoulder near the barn. Confusion spread faster than courage. A horse hit the hidden wire and went down shrieking. Tin cups sang from behind the sheds when two men tried to swing wide, making it sound like defenders waited there too. Ada fired from the roof, then the loft slit, then the kitchen window, never twice from the same dark. Her whole aim was simple. Keep them guessing. Keep them angry. Keep them from becoming methodical. It worked on most of them, not on Vernon Pike. He stayed back under the cottonwoods until the others had tested every fear in the yard. Then he rode forward alone, easy as a caller dropping by for coffee. "You've got tricks," he called. "But tricks don't refill cartridges." Ada held her fire. Pike took another step. "Your father died because he couldn't count. Don't make the same mistake." She could smell the sweet tobacco again, even through the cold dust of the night. 50 yards. Crosswind. Too dim for certainty. Amos's voice moved through her memory. "Let the moment come to you." Pike raised his chin. He thought paper mattered more than men with money. Ada fired. The bullet clipped the brim of his hat and tore skin from his ear. He wheeled away cursing. The raiders surged, and the quiet yard shattered at once. Bullets punched sod from the walls. One smashed the front lantern. Another ripped through the loft boards above her shoulder. Ada rolled, reloaded by touch, and fired again before changing position. She felt herself narrow to rhythm. Bolt. Breathe. Sight. Squeeze. Move. Then came a new smell beneath the gun smoke. Kerosene. A rag fire licked under the kitchen wall. Ada raced down the hatch ladder, kicked a bucket over it, and watched steam and smoke burst up together. Pike had changed plans. He was not trying to frighten her off the land now. He meant to burn her out and call it consequence. The next minutes turned mean. A man crashed through the lean-to and caught the butcher knife in his thigh. Ada snatched his revolver as he fell, fired once toward the porch, and heard a body hit dirt. A bullet split the fabric on her upper arm. Another buried itself in the bread board inches from her head. She moved from room to loft to doorway and back again, using every angle Amos had ever built with his own hands. Between the shots there were tiny, terrible silences. In one, she heard the kitchen clock still ticking. In another, she saw 2 plates stacked from supper and felt grief cut through her, so clean she nearly folded. Then the truth her father died for broke loose from a fool's mouth. Pike's foreman, half mad from blood loss and smoke, shouted toward the house. He should have signed when Mr. Pike offered. Didn't have to copy widows' deeds and write down every changed line. Pike roared at him to shut up, but the words were already in the air. So that was the full rot of it. Widows. Women with claims and children and not enough legal schooling to catch a crooked survey line. Amos had been gathering proof, waiting until it could bury the right man instead of merely anger him. Ada fired toward the foreman's stirrup and sent him sprawling. "That's for every woman you thought too lonely to defend herself," she said. The answer came as a rush on the back wall. 3 men at once. One went down with a shot through the dark. The second hit the doorway and took the rifle stock across his face. The third slashed with a knife, opened her shoulder, and drove her backward into the stove. Pain flashed white. Ada planted a boot, rose hard, and rammed the rifle but under his jaw until his legs forgot him. When he fell, the room swayed once and settled crooked. Outside, the shooting thinned. That frightened her more than noise. She climbed to the loft and looked through the slat. 4 horses stood riderless. 2 bodies lay still. The rest had pulled back beyond easy sight. Then she saw why. Vernon Pike stood by the pump with a torch in one hand and Amos Mercer's grave shovel in the other. At his feet lay the storm cellar boards he had pried loose. He had found the blind place where a fire pushed from underneath could smoke a person out faster than bullets. "Ada," he called, all smoothness again. "Last chance. Come out now and I swear you'll see sunrise." She checked her pockets. 2 cartridges. Smoke was threading up through the floorboards now. The loft had gone hot under her knees. Then, from beneath the kitchen floor, came a sound so small she nearly missed it. 3 taps. A pause. 2 taps. Caleb. Relief hit so hard it hurt. She knelt, pressed her palm to the boards, and tapped back once. Wait. Then she rose through the smoke and spent her next to last round on Pike's torch. The bullet burst the pitch pot. Flames spilled over his sleeve. Men shouted. Horses danced sideways. Pike cursed and dropped the fire into the dirt. It bought her half a minute. Half a minute is sometimes a whole life. Ada ran below, shoved aside the grain sack, and opened the crawl hatch just as Caleb came up from the storm cellar black with dirt and winded from the ride. For one breath, neither of them spoke. Then he saw the blood on her shoulder, and she saw the tremor in his hands. "Judge Holloway has the ledger," he said. "Reverend's bringing settlers. 20, maybe 30 minutes. 30's too long. Then we make it shorter for Pike." He bound her shoulder with his neckerchief, fast and careful. The cloth bit deep. She did not flinch until his knuckles brushed the worst of it. Outside, boots crossed the yard. Smoke pressed low overhead. Caleb tied the knot and said, very quietly, "I left my wife alone when fever took our girl. Rode for a doctor who never came. Been hearing that ride inside my head every night since." Ada looked at him, not with pity, with recognition. "My father used to say lonely people are the easiest to rob," she answered. "Not because they're weak. Because nobody believes they'll be missed loudly enough." Caleb swallowed. "Then witness this. I came back." That line settled between them with the weight of something truer than comfort. Ada pressed Amos's cracked brass watch into his hand. "If I fall, don't let him make me small. You're not falling. A man shouldn't promise what weather can't hear." His fingers closed around the watch. "Then I'll promise this instead. Whatever they made you carry alone ends tonight. If this story is moving you, you're exactly who it was written for. A like and a subscribe help keep these kinds of endings alive. And if you've ever known what it is to be overlooked until the very moment you were needed, then you already know why this part matters." Ada showed Caleb the rope lines, the buckets, the slit in the loft. He told her the bridge by Miller's Wash had been cut, slowing the men behind him. They would come, but not quickly enough to do the important part for them. "We don't need rescuing," Ada said. "We need Pike Vane." Under the kitchen floor, the cistern overflow ran through a narrow trench behind the barn. Amos had deepened it years ago to save the foundation in wet months. Ada had poured lamp oil along the near end at dusk in case she needed fire. Now she wanted something better than fire. She wanted Pike on the ground. Caleb took the roof. Ada took the doorway. She stepped just into moonlight. "Pike." He turned, sleeve charred, pride leaking off him worse than blood. "Ready to sign?" "I'm ready to trade." She held up a folded paper from Amos's desk. Not the ledger, but shaped right enough in the dark. "Come take it if you doubt me." He hesitated. Around him the remaining riders shifted, tired now, spooked by shadows, bruised by a woman they had expected to frighten and instead could not corner. Ada tilted her head. "Or send one of your boys. If that's the sort of courage you keep." Pike dismounted at once. He came toward the house with the shovel in one hand and a revolver in the other. "You think one long night changes arithmetic?" "No," Ada said softly. "I think one foolish step does." He took it. His boot hit the slick trench. One leg shot forward. He crashed hard into the mud and run off, the revolver jerking wild as it fired. Caleb's shot from the roof knocked the gun clean from his hand. Before Pike could rise, Ada was on him with the rifle barrel under his jaw. The raiders shouted. One horse moved forward. Caleb fired into the dirt by its hooves, and the whole line checked. They had been hired for easy work, not a gallows. Pike glared up at Ada, face muddy. All his expensive certainty split open at last. Do it. Part of her wanted to. The night had earned that simplicity. But Amos Mercer had not died preserving names and deeds, so his daughter could answer theft with another secret body in the dark. Instead, Ada brought the rifle stock down across Pike's wrist until the shovel flew. Then she planted her boot between his shoulders and called to the riders. "Ride now, and maybe you still claim ignorance. Stay, and you stand beside him when Barstow hears how many widows paid for his pasture with their children's winters." Silence held. Then one rider turned away. Another followed. Within seconds the rest were backing off, cursing not at Ada now, but at the man who had promised them a helpless claim and found them witnesses, injuries, and judgment instead. One threw down his rifle before he rode. Another spat near Pike and left him where he lay. By the time Reverend Sloan and the bell boys thundered over the rise with lanterns swinging, the real work was already done. Vernon Pike was in Mercer mud with Ada's rifle at his neck and Caleb standing beside her like a man who had finally reached the end of running from his own ghosts. Morning finished what the night began. Judge Holloway came from Barstow before noon with 2 federal deputies. Caleb placed the ledger in his hands. Ada gave her account without shaking. Mrs. Bell testified to threats. The storekeeper's wife produced copied bills Pike had forced her husband to alter. Reverend Sloan, ashamed enough now to be brave, spoke for the widows Amos had been helping in secret. By evening, Sheriff Tully had lost his badge. By weeks end, Pike's ranch books were seized, his water diversions mapped, his forged deeds matched against the originals, and every stolen acre stood to be restored or sold to make the cheated families whole. Pike did not fall with dignity. Cruel men rarely do. He raged in chains. He called the court corrupt. He swore the county owed him. Perhaps parts of it once had. That debt was over. His cattle were auctioned. His bank notes frozen. His house inventoried room by room. 3 widows bought back their own land with money taken from the man who had stolen it. And in the county book, under the Mercer claim, the clerk wrote Ada's name clean and legal where everyone could see it. Recognition came slower than gunfire, but it came solid. Men who had spoken past Ada now spoke to her. Women stopped by the gate with bread, seed, thread, and that particular gratitude people bring when someone else has avenged a quiet humiliation they know by heart. On Sunday, Reverend Sloane asked her to stand in church. She hated him a little for it, until the whole room rose with her. After the service, Caleb found her at the hitch rail, turning Amos's hat in her hands. "The bellboys are raising a new lean-to Tuesday," he said. "Half the county plans to help." Ada looked toward the road where wagons were rolling home under a clean blue sky. "Funny. Last month half the county thought I ought to marry or move." Caleb leaned beside her. "Maybe they finally learned there are women the world mistakes for leftover material right up until the roof starts falling, and they're the only ones who know how to brace it." She turned the hat brim once. "And what did you learn, Caleb Rooke?" He took his time. Wind moved through the cottonwoods. Somewhere children laughed by the church steps. "That grief doesn't leave because you outrun it," he said. "It just makes a little room when somebody kind sits down beside it." Ada felt her throat tighten. Her father was still dead. Her mother's songs were still gone from the kitchen. The brother buried years earlier was still a small absence in every season. Justice had not erased any of that, but it had done something quieter and perhaps more miraculous. It had made tomorrow feel inhabitable. She drew Amos's repaired brass watch from her pocket and hooked its chain through Caleb's vest buttonhole. "My father meant to leave this to the son he never got to raise. Maybe he kept it because he didn't know where to set all that love after losing him." Caleb touched the watch, then her hand. "You sure? I'm not giving it away." She stepped closer. "I'm making sure it gets heard again." They did not kiss there in front of the church and county in daylight. This was a better kind of beginning than that. It was 2 damaged people staying put while tenderness arrived, and neither of them insulting it by pretending not to know what it was. By first frost, Pike had been convicted on fraud, arson, conspiracy, and assault. His money was broken up. His name was spoiled. Sheriff Tully was gone. Amos Mercer had a proper stone at his grave. The widows planted together that spring, sharing teams and seed. And on the south quarter, Pike had wanted most. Ada broke the soil herself, while Caleb walked the team beside her, both of them muddy to the knees, both laughing when the plow snagged an old root everyone had always said was impossible to move. Months later, when evening turned blue over the wheat and the house glowed warm against the dark, supper smelled of stew, onions, and fresh bread. Caleb's coat hung beside Amos's by the door, not replacing it, only keeping company. On the shelf above the stove, the brass watch ticked steady as if time itself had finally chosen mercy. Ada stood at the window watching the new fence posts hold straight in the wind and said, almost to herself, "Funny thing about what lasts. It usually begins with whatever the world was certain would break." Beyond the yard, beneath a sky wide enough to keep every promise the day had made, the wheat moved silver in the night wind like 1,000 quiet hands learning how to bless. Next time, we'll tell the story of the deaf seamstress left at a remote Wyoming station with a baby that wasn't hers, and the one-armed cattleman who was the first man alive to understand that the silence around her was not emptiness at all.